Chosen one, before you try to understand why people turned against you, you need to understand this truth: it was never random, and it was never really about them. The shift you felt didn't start the moment they changed. It started long before, the moment something in you began to rise. Chosen ones don't announce their calling. They don't walk into rooms saying they are different. But the moment your spirit starts aligning with purpose, the atmosphere around you changes. People feel it before they can explain it. Energy speaks louder than words, and when your inner world begins to sharpen, others subconsciously sense that you are no longer the same version they once knew. At first, the resistance is subtle. It looks like jokes that sting a little too deep, silence where support used to live, distance disguised as being busy. You start questioning yourself, wondering if you did something wrong. But here's what most people never realize: when you are chosen, your growth becomes a mirror, and not everyone is ready to look at themselves. Your discipline exposes their excuses. Your healing highlights their wounds. Your self-control triggers their chaos. Even if you say nothing, even if you stay humble, your presence alone forces people to confront what they've been avoiding within themselves. People don't turn against you because you're arrogant. They turn against you because you're evolving. And evolution makes the comfortable uncomfortable. When you start breaking cycles, the ones still trapped inside those cycles feel threatened. Not because you attacked them, but because you showed them that escape is possible. Your life becomes proof that change exists, and for those who have settled into stagnation, that proof feels like judgment. Another reason people turn against chosen ones is access. When you were unsure of yourself, when you were over-giving, over-explaining, and constantly available, you were easy to control. Some people loved you when you were small, when you needed validation, when you bent yourself to keep the peace. But the moment you started setting boundaries, the moment you stopped tolerating disrespect, their comfort disappeared, and instead of adjusting, they resisted. To them, your boundaries felt like rejection. To you, it was survival. There is also a spiritual layer many ignore. Chosen ones carry an authority that doesn't come from status, money, or popularity. It comes from alignment, and alignment disrupts unseen systems. When you walk in truth, deception becomes exposed. When you choose integrity, manipulation loses power. This is why some people suddenly misunderstand you, misrepresent you, or talk about you behind your back. They are trying to regain control of a narrative they feel slipping away. If they can't dim your light directly, they'll attempt to distort how others see it. Notice how the betrayal often comes from those closest to you. That's not an accident. Distance protects strangers, but familiarity breeds entitlement. Some people felt ownership over you. They felt like they knew you, shaped you, influenced you. So when you begin to outgrow the version of you they're attached to, they feel abandoned, even though you're simply becoming who you were always meant to be. Growth feels like betrayal to those who benefited from your self-doubt. You may have also noticed that as you grow, conversations change. Topics that once bonded you no longer resonate. You crave depth, purpose, meaning, while others want to stay distracted. This creates friction, and rather than admitting the disconnect, people label you as different, cold, or changed. But the truth is, you didn't change, you remembered who you are. And remembering is dangerous to those who forgot themselves. Another painful truth is that some people turn against chosen ones out of envy they don't even recognize. It's not jealousy over what you have, it's resentment over what you represent. You represent courage they didn't choose, discipline they avoided, healing they postponed, and instead of facing that discomfort, they project it onto you. Suddenly, you're the problem. Suddenly, you're too much. This projection allows them to stay the same without guilt. What hurts most is that chosen ones often try harder when they feel resistance. You explain yourself more, you give more grace, you lower yourself to keep relationships intact. But hear this clearly, not every connection is meant to survive your calling. Some people are assigned to seasons, not destinies. And when you confuse the two, you delay your purpose trying to save what was never meant to stay. God or the universe or divine order, however you understand it, often allows opposition as a form of confirmation. Resistance is not rejection, it is recognition. When people turn against you without reason, it's often because something in them recognizes the power in you that you haven't fully stepped into yet. Darkness always notices light before light notices itself. This is also why rumors spread faster than truth about chosen ones. People feel unsettled by your silence, your restraint, your refusal to engage in chaos. So they fill the silence with stories. But understand this, a person who is truly aligned doesn't need to defend themselves. Your consistency will speak longer than their lies. Time always reveals intention. There will come a moment when you realize the isolation wasn't punishment, it was preparation. The separation wasn't loss, it was alignment. Being misunderstood taught you discernment. Betrayal taught you boundaries. Loneliness taught you reliance on something higher than people. And once the lesson is complete, you won't even crave the approval of those who turned against you. You'll see them clearly, without bitterness, without anger, just understanding. Chosen ones are often refined through fire, and fire reveals who was only standing close for warmth, not commitment. Those who disappear when things get intense were never meant to walk the full path with you, and that's okay. Your journey requires lightness, clarity, and focus. Carrying the wrong people would slow what is meant to move swiftly. So if you've been wondering why people turned against you when you did nothing but grow, heal, and stay true, this is your confirmation. You're not cursed. You're not broken. You're not imagining it. You're awakening. And awakening rearranges everything. Some will cheer quietly from a distance. Some will oppose loudly from insecurity. But only a few are meant to walk beside you into what's next. Stay grounded. Stay aligned. You don't need to prove who you are to anyone who benefited from misunderstanding you. The same power that revealed the opposition is the same power guiding you forward. And soon, very soon, you'll realize that losing them was the protection you prayed for long before you knew how to ask. When people turn against you, one of the hardest parts is the silence that follows. Not the peaceful kind, but the kind where your phone stops lighting up, invitations disappear, and the warmth you once felt is replaced by distance you can't explain. For chosen ones, this silence is intentional. It's a spiritual clearing. Noise had to be removed so you could finally hear yourself again. The voices that once influenced your decisions, diluted your intuition, or pulled you into patterns you'd outgrown had to fade. Otherwise, you would never fully trust the inner guidance that's been trying to lead you all along. This is where many chosen ones struggle, because you are naturally empathetic. You feel deeply. You sense shifts before they're spoken. And when people pull away or turn cold, your first instinct is to fix it. You replay conversations, analyze your tone, wonder if you were too quiet, too intense, too honest, too distant. But the truth is, your spirit outgrew the environment, and your soul refused to shrink to make others comfortable. That inner refusal is what triggered the resistance. Not a single word you said. There's also a moment when chosen ones stop participating in fake harmony. You stop laughing at things that feel wrong. You stop agreeing just to be liked. You stop betraying yourself to maintain connection. And when you do that, people who rely on surface-level bonds feel exposed. They sense that you can see through them now. Even if you never call them out, even if you stay respectful, your awareness alone changes the dynamic. People feel seen before they feel understood, and not everyone is ready for that. Another layer people rarely talk about is how chosen ones disrupt group dynamics. Every group has unspoken rules. Who leads, who follows, who stays quiet, who absorbs the emotional weight. When you begin stepping into your true self, those roles start breaking. You no longer carry what was never yours. You no longer dim your light to keep balance. And when a system is built on imbalance, anyone who stops participating becomes the target. It's easier to label you as the problem than to admit the system was flawed. You might notice that some people don't confront you directly. Instead, they become passive-aggressive, sarcastic, or oddly competitive. This is insecurity trying to mask itself. Your growth threatens the version of themselves they've been avoiding. And rather than rise, they resent. Rather than heal, they harden. But resentment is a heavy burden. You were never meant to carry it, and you were never meant to stay close to those who do. There's also a divine protection in people turning against you. Some connections had access to you when you were vulnerable. They knew your fears, your doubts, your soft spots. If they stayed while your power increased, they could have harmed you in ways you weren't prepared to defend against. So the separation came early. It felt unfair, abrupt, confusing, but it was strategic. You were being shielded before the next level required more from you. Chosen ones often experience character assassination before elevation. People misunderstand your silence as arrogance, your boundaries as cruelty, your solitude as weakness. But what they don't see is the discipline it takes to remain calm when misjudged, the strength it takes to stay kind when attacked, and the faith it takes to keep moving forward without applause. This phase builds authority. Not the kind that demands attention, but the kind that commands respect without asking. There will be days when you miss who people used to be, or at least who you thought they were. Grief is part of growth. You're not grieving the person, they're still here. You're grieving the connection, the hope, the future you imagined together. Allow yourself to feel that without shame. Chosen ones don't numb themselves, they process deeply. But don't confuse grief with regret. You didn't lose your way, you followed it. Pay attention to how your intuition sharpens during this time. You start noticing patterns quicker. You sense intentions faster. You feel when something is off without needing proof. This is a gift refined through disappointment. Betrayal didn't break you, it trained you. You now move with discernment instead of desperation, clarity instead of confusion. And this is exactly why the opposition couldn't stay hidden. Some people turn against you because they know deep down that they can't come with you. They feel the shift before it fully manifests. They sense that your priorities are changing, your values deepening, your path narrowing. And instead of admitting they're not ready, they sabotage the connection to protect their ego. This is not your burden to carry. You were never meant to drag people into alignment. They have to choose it themselves. The isolation you experience isn't meant to last forever, but it is meant to transform you. In this quiet season, you learn who you are without validation. You discover what you believe without consensus. You build a relationship with yourself that doesn't depend on approval. And once that foundation is set, new connections begin to form, ones that don't require you to explain, perform, or shrink. You'll also realize that the people who turned against you often repeat the same patterns with others. What felt personal was actually habitual. They resist anyone who grows beyond their comfort zone. Seeing this doesn't make you bitter. It makes you free. You stop internalizing their behavior and start seeing it clearly. Compassion replaces confusion. Distance replaces drama. Chosen ones don't get closure the way others do. You don't always get apologies or explanations. Sometimes the door just closes, and that's okay. Closure doesn't come from their acknowledgement. It comes from your understanding. You don't need them to admit they were wrong for you to move on. You just need to honor what the experience taught you. As you continue forward, you'll notice something powerful. The need to be understood fades. You stop trying to prove your heart. You stop chasing clarity from those committed to misunderstanding you. Peace becomes more valuable than being right. Alignment becomes more important than attachment. And in that space, your energy stabilizes. Your confidence softens. Your presence strengthens. One day, you'll look back and realize that the people who turned against you were the final test of a chapter you were meant to close. If they had stayed, you might have stayed smaller. If they had supported you, you might have delayed stepping fully into your calling. Their opposition accelerated your awakening. Their absence created room for your expansion. So if you're walking through this season right now, misunderstood, isolated, quietly transforming, know this: you are not being positioned. What feels like loss is actually refinement. What feels like rejection is redirection. And what feels like loneliness is simply the space required for what's coming next. You don't need to rush. You don't need to explain. You don't need to look back. The path ahead is aligning in ways you can't see yet, and when the right people arrive, there will be no confusion, no competition, no resistance, only recognition. There comes a point where chosen ones stop asking why people turned against them and start understanding what it produced. This is where the real shift happens, because opposition doesn't just remove people from your life, it removes illusions. You begin to see clearly who was connected to your essence and who was only connected to your access, your empathy, your availability. And clarity, while painful at first, becomes one of the greatest gifts you receive on this path. In this stage, you notice that you no longer react the way you used to. The comments don't cut as deeply. The absence doesn't feel as loud. Not because you became cold, but because you became centered. You stopped looking outward for confirmation and started anchoring inward. This is maturity of the spirit. When chosen ones reach this level, they no longer bleed in rooms that once wounded them. They simply don't enter those rooms anymore. You also begin to understand that some people weren't meant to turn against you, they were meant to reveal themselves. Their resistance exposed what words never could. Loyalty is loud in silence, and character shows most clearly when there's nothing left to gain. The way people treated you when you stopped being useful to their comfort taught you more than years of conversation ever could. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. This is where forgiveness becomes possible, not because they deserve it, but because you deserve peace. Forgiveness for a chosen one is not reconciliation, it's release. It's choosing not to carry emotional weight into a future that requires clarity and strength. You don't have to explain your healing to those who contributed to the wound. You simply move forward lighter than before. Another shift happens here. You stop fearing being misunderstood. You realize that misunderstanding protected you. If everyone had understood you, too many people would have tried to access you without honoring your depth. Privacy became a shield. Mystery became safety. And your life began to move quietly, strategically, without unnecessary exposure. This is where your power becomes subtle but undeniable. Chosen ones also begin attracting new energy at this stage. People who don't compete with you, don't drain you, don't question your authenticity. Connections feel calmer, slower, more intentional. There's no rush to prove, no need to perform. Conversations nourish instead of exhaust. And you realize how heavy old connections were by comparison. Peace shows you what chaos used to disguise as normal. You may still feel moments of sadness, not for what was lost, but for how long you stayed where you were no longer aligned. Self-compassion deepens here. You stop judging your past self for not knowing what you know now. You honor the version of you that survived confusion without clarity, love without safety, loyalty without reciprocity. That version carried you here, and that matters. At this level, you also stop trying to save others. You understand that awakening can't be forced. Some people must stay asleep because that's where their lessons live. You learn to love from a distance without guilt. Detachment stops feeling like abandonment and starts feeling like wisdom, and your energy no longer leaks trying to rescue what refuses to rise. There's a quiet authority that develops in chosen ones who pass through this phase. You don't announce it. You don't posture. But people feel it. Your words land differently. Your presence steadies rooms. You speak less but with more weight. This authority isn't built through dominance. It's built through restraint, discernment, and self-respect forged in isolation. You also realize that everything you went through refined your intuition. You no longer ignore red flags because of potential. You no longer romanticize struggle as loyalty. You choose peace faster. You leave earlier, and you trust yourself fully. This trust is sacred. It's the foundation of everything that comes next. The need for validation fades almost completely here. Praise doesn't inflate you. Criticism doesn't deflate you. You move based on alignment, not applause. And this is where many chosen ones quietly surpass those who once doubted them. Not because you were trying to prove anything, but because focus compounds faster than resentment ever could. You may notice that some of the same people who turned against you begin to watch from a distance, not to reconnect, but to observe. Your life no longer makes sense to them because it no longer runs on the rules they understand. And that's okay. You weren't meant to be understood by everyone, only to be true. As this chapter closes, you carry one deep knowing with you. Losing people did not delay your destiny, it accelerated it. The pruning was necessary, the loneliness was purposeful. The opposition was confirmation. Everything that left made space for something more aligned, more honest, more expansive. You didn't imagine the shift. You didn't overreact. You didn't lose your heart. You found it. And now you walk forward lighter, clearer and stronger than before, no longer questioning why people turned against you, but grateful that you didn't turn against yourself.